Hi, welcome to this week's question. Today's question comes from Ingrid, and she writes, my son is 2 years and 3 months. He takes anywhere between 30 minutes on a good night to 2.5 hours to go to sleep. But my problem is that he's happy. He gets out of bed constantly and plays in his room or reads books. He's great at playing in his bed as well. It's not a matter of an upset boy, it's a matter of a tired boy the next day. I feel like I've tried every possible solution, from getting angry to returning him to his bed. I'm just trying to condense it a little. It's a long one, but I think the main problem is that he's not falling asleep, but he's not sad about it. And she's finding it difficult to find strategies that are dealing with a happy boy as opposed to a sad one. And she wonders if she's the only one out there who's got this problem. And you're not, Ingrid. I mean, I think everyone assumes that when you're making changes to your child's sleep habits, that you're going to be met with lots of tears and lots of protest. But often, even with a baby, sometimes they're just happily playing in their crib, and then you wonder, well, what should I do now? It doesn't seem upset. Should I go? Should I stay? Should I go in the room? What should I do? So here's some suggestions for you. First of all, I'm wondering, is he still napping during the day? That could be causing part of the problem. A lot of, he's 2 and 3 months, he could be starting to transition out of his daytime nap. And what tends to happen with that is that the toddler will seem ready and happily go down for a nap and sleep for a couple of hours, no problem, but then when bedtime rolls around, there's lots of games or protest or stalling, and bedtime sort of gets pushed later and later into the 8:30, 9 o'clock area. So if that could be part of it. So I would consider pulling his nap if he's still taking one. And that'll be tough. It takes about a month for a toddler to transition out of a daytime nap. And so there'll be days where he's grumpy and he seems like he could really use a nap. But just hang in there, and maybe move bedtime earlier to compensate. So if he's not napping, he should be going to bed between 7 and 7:30. What you might want to do is just make sure his bedtime routine is really predictable and step by step. So I would do about a half-hour routine getting him ready for bed, a bath, get jammies on, read stories. Because of his age, depending on how verbal he is and how his comprehension skills are, you could try offering a bit of a reward system. Something really simple, and I would suggest people write it down. There's just something that makes it more concrete when a toddler sees that it's being written down, that if he stays in his bed and tries to sleep, then in the morning he can have, a Smartie or a cookie or a sticker, whatever would be rewarding enough that he might give it a try. It might not make a difference, but I think it's worth a try to kind of keep it on a positive note, and that he really needs to stay in his bed and he needs to be quiet and really try to go to sleep. And once he's in his bed and lights are out, I suggest you leave, because it doesn't sound to me like he's got fears of being in there on his own or anything like that, so there's no point in staying. I would just make your exit, and good night. Another thing you might want to do is take things out of his room that are causing distractions. I know in your question you said he gets up and he plays with his toys and he reads his books. Move all that stuff to another location, and maybe it can be part of the reward for doing good behavior. If he's gone for a whole week without getting out of his bed and without playing with toys or reading books, then he can have those things come back to his room, as long as he makes good choices about what he should be doing at bedtime. So take out all distractions. And I know it's a bit of a hassle, and I've had clients where we've stripped the room bare. Basically all that's in there is his bed. And then you've got to let him, I always say to people, you have a job to do, which is instilling bedtime, making sure that the boundaries are clear, but you can't actually force someone to sleep if they won't. So if he wants to lay in his bed and have a bit of a chat to himself or do a bit of singing before he goes to sleep, you can't really do much to control that. Maybe it's part of his winding down. He sings a few songs he remembers through the day or whatever the case may be. So I wouldn't worry too much about that as long as he's in his bed and as long as he's being reasonably quiet. If he's bouncing up and down and yelling loudly, then that's definitely worth going in. To remind him. Now, if he comes out, I don't know if he does come out of his room, but if he does, then there has to be some consequences to that. So if he came out of his room, I would say that's your one warning. You may not come out of your room, or a consequence. And for toddlers, good consequences are, for example, closing the door. A lot of toddlers like to have their door sort of half open and don't like the idea of it being closed solid. And so that's a great consequence. If you come out again, I'm going to close your door. And you don't have to close it for the entire night. You can just close it for 5 minutes. Then remind him again, you need to stay in your room or I'm going to close your door. And if he comes out again, then you close the door for 5 more minutes. So first it's 5 minutes, and then it's 10, and then it's 15. And usually they stop testing pretty quick into that because most toddlers really find that an uncomfortable consequence, and so they stop pretty quick. If that's going to make no difference to him, then maybe he has a teddy that he sleeps with or a special blankie. That's really part of his strategy. You could withdraw that if he's not cooperating. You go in, take Teddy, walk out for 5 minutes, bring Teddy back, remind him of the rules. Still not cooperating, go in, take Teddy for 10 minutes, bring it back. And again, those sorts of consequences often stop the behavior fairly quickly. I wouldn't, there's no point in getting angry at him. Lots of toddlers are looking for attention, so even negative attention is still attention. Just be really neutral, and the less talking you do, often the better it goes. And you might just have to go for a few nights of, nothing in his room for distractions, totally ignoring him, so he's not getting rewards out of it. And that should help speed things up a little. I mean, eventually he's going to get bored of laying in his bed and singing and trying to get you to come in, and he's going to stop. So that's my best suggestion for your son. And I mean, the good news is that he is comfortable being on his own, which is a struggle for a lot of parents. And so that, half the battle is won in that he's comfortable enough to be on his own. It's just now, reminding him what the rules are about bedtime. And there's things you can do and things you can't do. And that should help steer him in the right direction. So thanks, Ingrid, for your question, and sleep well.